Alien Earth, Emergence. Probably should have added the E, the Y at the end, because it was an emergency all over the place. Not that anyone could do about it. So, one of the big complaints is a lot of the situations are just stupid, primarily because the staff and crew are pretty stupid. And that was especially pronounced in the flashback episode of what happened on the Maginot. And yet it worked in the sense of how could this happen? Plus, they had a traitor on board and that kind of thing. They could have just gone with that. But, as it spells out, and I guess there should have been some dialogue to flesh that out a bit, that they're somewhat limited on who would volunteer and take this job to do those missions. And you can have a couple of desperate people, but you need people who are professional and have skills and stuff. And this is the lot they could get. And, they're just stumbling and fumbling and farting around all over the place and got themselves killed, And to a point, I accept that. Others, not so much, they're just, no, it's too stupid. It got too stupid with the scene with the doctors. Sure, they could be crappy doctors, but damn, come on, So that, you can only go so far with it. And I think they stumbled on that. There's been some stumbles through this show, despite some of the cool stuff. This episode, we see more of Timothy Oliphant's synth character. I keep forgetting his name. But he had this plot going on, which was blatantly obvious to the point that I didn't really mention it for the most part, because I don't think that's anything. The only thing was his motivation. Now, a lot of this would play into the attitudes that a lot of synths have had. Really, throughout the Alien series, probably the only good synths were Bishop and the guy from Alien Romulus. The rest of them, they're evil, because they have no respect for humanity whatsoever. It's like Ash really spells it out to what he thinks of humans, and that he has more admiration for the xenomorph. Because humans just have delusions of morality. So, oh my God. You really needed to unplug that guy, which they did. But anyway, Oliphant seems more akin to that. But it's like, well, what's his end game? What's his motivation here for what he's allowing to happen? Because he completely knew Morrow's plot. He was listening in on it. And just the curiosity to see, wow, I wonder how far this goes. Is that it? Something like that. And then it gets resolved in this episode somewhat. There may be more to it, and there better be, because this doesn't exactly work. Now, is this put him in a position that he wants to be in that gives him more control and power over the whole project? Perhaps. But you're not sure. So it's a mystery. It doesn't mean it throws it all off just yet. But it could if this is it, and he's like, I got the drop on you. You're stupid. Look what happened, The whole thing's a disaster. Meanwhile, you have Wendy. Now, personality-wise, I think a lot of this is very credible. It's very interesting. The redheaded girl, whose name I forget. Her real name was Rose. What fits? You're a redheaded girl, And that's all credible, too, because she's the one who broke immediately after their experience on the crash site and everything, and she had this mental breakdown. She's very vulnerable and fragile to these things. And then just the mere mention, hey, Wendy's like, they screwed with your memories. Of course, Wendy is a child herself and doesn't have the tact about these sort of things. And she's back into the psychosis returns and all that. And so all of that's, none of that's bad. It's good. And what happens at the end and everything, that's fine. Yeah, she's the one who would do that. She's the one that this would go, and you understand it. Wendy is more interesting in her journey, if you will. And what the brother is starting to wonder, and there's a powerful scene where it's getting closer to the truth about this supposed immortality. And I think it's what it really, it's more akin to how I see it. Of course, I'm biased in that direction. But, and it's like, well, we're thinking Wendy is probably the hero of the story. After this episode, and not so much, and even before you get to the conclusion there of the sort of cliffhanger that it ends on, she's moved into villain territory. Even though, you got what the company has done to these kids and what's unfolding, and they're beginning to realize these guys are evil and they're manipulating them and they're just children. They're being used as these pawns, and it's horrible. But the run-of-the-mill staff and stuff, they're just hired grunts and whatnot, I mean, it's just, and she's just, and, that is evil. You're not God. You don't make judgments like that over these people. Boy Cavalier, you could figure out, oh, yeah, oh, boy, that guy, quite the monster. Even more so than the Xenomorph. The Xenomorph is just a clever animal, doing what it was bred to do. But him, he's the main villain of the story, because he sets all this into motion and whatnot. Now look what happened. And even if it hadn't happened, what he was doing to those kids, he's irredeemable. So, and I'm beginning to think of what's going to become of him. And I thought this at pretty early on, because the other fascinating player here is Itopus. I think is how you probably should pronounce it. It's very interesting, and this gives more potential for expansion of the universe and something they might want to pursue elsewhere after basically the Xenomorph story part of this is over. They're connected, they're in the alien universe and everything, but they've added more to it, and that's part of the positives of the show. And if they do a season 2, which I don't know what their numbers are, but it might be likely that they will pursue a second season, and it might involve Itopus more than anything else, and the discovery that Itopus is a lot more than what it appears. And so that's the fascinating and intriguing elements, and it's all very cool. And where do you think that is going to end up, huh? So that's been really good, and how it played out and stuff. It's just there's a lot of stumbles here and there. So the interesting thing, Oliphant's one of the best actors on there. Him and Morrow that's really cool. Good work and stuff. And that unfolding. So if it stays like it is, that's a problem. I think there needs to be a little more to what is his plan, what's his overall thing. It could still come to fruition, and by the season's end. So it's not room enough to just say, well, that's it, this is too stupid, and that sort of thing. It hasn't reached too stupid. They're stupid. There's stumbles that were unnecessary, that they didn't have to do. There was easy, basic plot points that could have been written in there to explain away things here and there, for and means by which you shoot certain events and stuff. They did that. The Maginot scene where the I guess first officer and that being chased by the Xenomorph, they needed to reshoot that. That's sloppy. The business of the kids going in, he says, well, Boy Cavalier is this a-hole madman, he does that. And it's just like, but they're also horribly expensive, and no, you needed to have a little more that, no, we really wanted to train them in the abilities, because they're basically superhuman. Well, they're not human, but they're super strong and stuff. Wendy demonstrates that pretty early on, and is like, wow, these would be great soldiers and stuff like that. and that they had trained them already. You know, instead, I don't know, they're learning their ABCs or whatever. Oh, look, a disaster. Hey, send the kids. Now, Maginot episode kind of clears that up a bit in that, you know, we know that Boy Cavalier's plot and all that sort of thing. It doesn't really answer that one, and they're not gonna. He just does it. And I'm like, I don't like that. You know, you got a lot of elements that are good and standard and smart even, and then something like that, just like, oh. Finally, the worst of all is this damn music. You have this powerful scene at the end of this. Here it comes. Every episode's got to go full Willow. And by Willow, I don't mean the movie. The movie was fine. The TV series. You never go full Willow. You never go Disney Plus full Willow. So even Disney Plus figured that out, and you can't see the show anymore. They took it away because it's that bad. You know, although they've done worse shows than that. Oh yes. But, you know, and the sad thing is the music's pretty sound. The incidental orchestra music that applies, it's creepy and, it's very in the mood for Alien. You know, it's not Jerry Goldsmith level, but who is? But you throw in it because sometimes in the middle of the show they'll have some pop song thing, and maybe it's an original thing they wrote for it, but it's like, it does not fit. And things like that. Now that's more of an aesthetic, but it adds up. So, don't do that. But a lot of it goes the way you would think, and the sad tale of the boy who's blackmailed into this, and then he's corrupting his friend, and then the situation that unfolds. Now, what is the gestation period for the xenomorph now? Sometimes it varies. Sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes now here it's kind of in between as it plays out. But it is something that, I mean, granted they're kids, but they're also kind of stupid. He knows Morrow wants the creature. The only creature he's aware of is the facehugger. So why didn't you bring it? See, he doesn't know. Morrow knows. He knows what's going to happen to Arthur, but the kid doesn't know. And then they're still bringing. Plus, they're able to whip up a raft. I mean, granted, they're super android guys, and but they're able to do that very quickly. They knew exactly how to do it. They even better than Gilligan on Gilligan's Island when they would do that stuff. So, it's not that big of a deal, but still. So anyway, there you go. That's some of the stumbles. With the positives, of course, Octopus, steals the show, albeit briefly, but it's cool. And Wendy, I think at this point, even if she somehow redeems herself some way, I'm not sure, but what she did in this episode, pretty evil. And then there's that realization, hey, do you think that's really Marcy in there? Well, I don't, but what's the show telling you? Well, we'll see how it turns out. But so far, there's been a lot of bad shows. There's been a lot of huge disappointments and stuff like that, especially with old franchises. Right now, I've never seen the Karate Kid movies, so I didn't get into Cobra Kai, but by all accounts, that still is king of the mountain when it comes to being respectful and having credible follow-ups to old franchises. Star Trek, Star Wars, and then now Doctor Who and the rest don't. They just refuse to do it. Alien, well, it's had a lot of stumbles and crappy sequels, but they're just crappy. I don't think they went out of their way to be stupid. They just didn't know what to do. But But Alien Earth right now has a chance to finally be at least somewhat a functional sequel, or in this case prequel, to Alien. They're not going. It's no way it's going to top Alien itself or Aliens, the only two good films in the whole franchise. But at least it made more of an attempt, and it did do, like, answers the question of what other story is there to tell after Aliens. Well, you look at expanding the universe. What is, and what's going on? They do give reference to the company. They give reference to a weapons division. What do you need a weapons division for? And there's some sort of war going on, that kind of thing. And that's something for you to explore. And here, they're actually doing it. They tried. Will it be as successful as it should have been? There's kind of too many stumbles at this point, but it's a better effort than just about everything else. I can't speak to novels and comic books. They probably did much better. But as far as film and now television, this is it. Yeah. And, you can improve on it. So I don't think it's fair to shut it down, forget it, it's dumb crap and all that. Not yet. It's got flaws, but it's not a total loss. But next episode could just jump the xenomorph, as I warned might happen, and ruin the whole thing. But I don't think so. But we'll see.